Welcome to another edition of the New England Racing Show. Manchester, New Hampshire, Channel 23, also on YouTube. And my name is Bill Sturgis. I'm the host. Well, this past Saturday, we went to Monadnock Speedway. We raced a NEMA light car there. NEMA was there, NEMA lights. And we didn't want to cover NEMA light, but we wanted to cover the Monadnock modifieds. They have their own brand of modifieds with a crate engine. And we began interviewing one of the drivers, and someone from the Speedway came over and told us, you can't tape, can't talk to the drivers, no publicity at all. And it turns out they have an in-house video production that they do. And if you want to know anything about Monadnock Speedway, you have to buy a DVD from Monadnock Speedway. So we weren't able to give you anything from them, which is too bad. We wanted to interview the drivers and find out how they got their start in racing, have them talk about their cars. And a lot of them knew we were coming up, and they were pretty disappointed when they found out that they couldn't get any publicity. So I guess they'll all have to remain unknown, which is sad. But anyway, we had tape from last week at the SCPM 125 at Star Speedway. And we took, these are the cars coming out for their heats, one heat at a time. And then we did a tour through the pits, looking at all the cars, and we didn't interview anyone. They were all busy working on their cars because this was a pretty serious event. But we did manage to take a tour through the pits and see the cars and the drivers. This is earlier in the day. They had a pretty good crowd there later on. And here we are going through the pits. Number 16 of Art Barry. The number 21 of John McKennedy. Young man who does really well in modifieds and super modifieds. I believe he was a Valente Modified Series champion last year. Just a really nice car. And by the way, the Valente modifieds are coming to Lee USA Speedway this Friday night, the 28th. Here's a number 71 of Josh Cantera. That, I believe, was Tommy Barrett, number 9. Here's a number 93, George Sherman. 66, Austin Kochinash, a young man who raced quarter midgets in Pennsylvania. He came all the way up from there to race. Of course, the 59 race winner, Matt Hirschman. 85 of Louis Michaelitis, Star Speedway champion last year. Unfortunately, he didn't make this race. The 13 of Stevie Massey, one of the up-and-coming superstars. 51 of Justin Bonsignori. Same thing with Justin. He's a real good driver. All the best were here. Andy Seiss from, I believe, Connecticut, but he's racing down south in the Southern Modified Tour. He came up here to race. The 3 of TC, Ted Christopher, Lenny Bowler's car. number 6 of Ron Silk. I believe he's a tour champion last year. The 5 of Carl Pastriak. He went for a wild ride in turn 1 and 2. Got sideways and went about 6 feet up in the air. I thought he was going over for sure. The 15, the $5, they numbered it 15 of Robbie Summers, a super modified driver. This is the 22 of Mike Stefanik, one of the legends of modified racing. They raced Friday night, the night before, down in Stafford in a tour race and decided to come up here and give it a shot. I think they had mechanical problems and didn't finish that well. I believe that was Jeff Rocco's car, the 57. 24 of Todd Patnode. He did really well in the race. He was leading at one point right after the pit stops. The 51 of Russ Wood Jr. Senior was a 7-time super modified champ. And they're just starting with the modifieds, and Russ didn't quite make the show. The 20 of Doug Kobe. Young man who's got a good future in racing. '23 of Mike Douglas Jr. His dad was a star in super modified racing at Star back in the 70s and 80s. '05 of Jake Dorr. He might have been the Star champion last year. It was either him or Louis, but he did really well in the race. He was started last with a provisional and got up to 5th before he had a right front tire go down on him. The 56 of Chris Ross. '36. Chris, we didn't get his last name. '99, Richard Savory. The 88 of Jim Boniface, another Star regular. The 12 of Todd Anarumo, another Star regular. A lot of good drivers that race at Star every week. That's Anthony Nacella. He came up from midgets and just started racing in the Valente Modifieds. That's the number 92. Pace car, Racing with Jesus pace car. Well, about the Star SBM 125, I'm not sure what SBM stands for. We always called them small block modifieds because back in the 70s they had big block modifieds and then they all turned into small blocks, so they'd call them SBM. The promoter was Kevin Rice for this one event, and co-promoter Bob Weber Jr., the owner of Star Speedway, and really have to hand it to them. They teamed up, and Kevin Rice did this out of his love for racing. He's a columnist for Area Auto, and he took this on. This is his 3rd year doing this race. And in 3 short years, it's become the premier modified event in New England. I've seen a lot of, it's not just another tour race. It's not a race that used to be special but turned into a tour race. It's not just another Valente. It's an open competition. And you could come here with a tour car like Mike Stefanik did. Ronnie Silk, you could come here with a Valente car, which a lot of people did. A Race of Champions car like Matt Hirschman, who won the race. Star cars, Star Speedway cars. It brought all these modifieds together in one race, which is what made it so special. And they had over $45,000 in prize money, which is really, I think it was the biggest paying event at Star ever, including the super modified classics. So we really owe a lot of thanks to Kevin, Bob Weber Jr., Dave McGuire, who tapes the races at Star. Just finished putting it up on YouTube a couple of days ago. He had to do a lot of editing because there were so many yellows at the end and he had to edit them out. But I urge you to go on YouTube and look up Dave McGuire has this race. But believe me, don't go on there and say, well, I'm not going to go to the race because I'm going to watch it on YouTube, because there's nothing like being there. But I mean, if you're there, you saw the race, you want to see it again, Dave McGuire tapes these races out of his love for racing. And we owe a big thanks to Dave. That's why we don't really tape the races at Star. We just go around the pits and give interviews with drivers and cover victory lane. But Dave does an awesome job. Also, I want to give a shout out to Mainly Motorsports. They have a TV show up in Maine, covers the northern part and overlaps with us a little bit. That's Steve Perry. His daughter Alicia races a Legends car. We interviewed her last week on our show when they had a pit party at Star and the Legends cars were there. And she's a young lady, 15 years old, and she's got a beautiful car and a bright future. And I say, move over, Danica. You know, there's a new girl in town here in New England anyway. And she's going to be something to watch. And Steve does his show, Mainly Motorsports, which is on YouTube and a public channel up there in Maine. I urge you to watch that, along with our show, of course, New England Racing Show. But we cover this, all of us cover this for the love of racing. And we don't make any money out of this. We just want to show you who's racing in New England and the stars. And, you know, sometimes it's unfortunate that you go to a track and you can't do that because somebody wants to make a profit. But letting that go, you know, the SBM 125 was a special race. And my son and I went and stood in the first turn, and our ears are still ringing a week and a half later. Nothing like being 20 feet away from the action and having 25 modifieds going by you at full blast. So you want to see the race, look on YouTube under Dave McGuire and you'll see it. Well, another thing we had this week to make up for our loss of Monadnock is my son Jake Sturgis drives a small block super at Lee, and he got a new GoPro camera, mounted it on his super, and we want to show you the feature from Lee Speedway from his cockpit. Now that feature unfortunately had a lot of bad wrecks in it. They had Dave Sanborn was leading the race, and something broke on his steering, and his car went straight into the wall, got totally destroyed. He was badly shaken up. So another car, Mike Nedishin's car, ran over some of the parts of Dave Sanborn's, and he got into the wall. So there's two cars that got wrecked there. Later on in the race, Bobby Weber Jr. and Ricky Wolf got together. Bobby Weber rode the wall, and his car got wrecked pretty bad. And then another car spun out on his own, John Booth, and he spun into the infield in the grass, and it looked like just a slow motion spin coming towards the infield. right at where I was standing, but there's a Jersey barrier in between. And we thought he was just going to spin and come to a stop, but we didn't realize that when you hit the grass, you speed up, and he hit that Jersey barrier, and he went straight up in the air about 6 or 8 feet. And the car just, it was a terrible impact, and John was shaken up pretty bad, so we hope that he's going to be okay. His car was wrecked pretty badly. So you had 4 cars that got wrecked and 1 damaged. Fortunately, we made it out in one piece. 8th place, but in one piece, so I was happy, but very sad to see these cars get wrecked. So let's see the in-car camera from Jake's car. Getting ready to start the race. Coming over to take the green. Sparky McIver goes sideways in front of Jake, and Jake just missed him. Now watch the lead car way up there, and you'll see, I don't know if you'll be able, you can barely see it if you look. Right about here. Yeah, something broke in his steering and he went straight into the wall. There's his wing on the left. Mike Nedishin drove over it and went down the front stretch wall and tore his car up. So they had a red flag and they had to stop, get everything cleaned up. We edited out all the dead time. Now they're ready to do a restart. That's John Booth spinning out. You didn't see him hit the inside wall, but he hit a ton. So there was another red flag. Red flag means everyone comes to a stop on the track because they have to get the ambulance crews out there and the fire trucks and make sure everyone's okay. Versus a yellow flag where the cars can continue to go around the track. And they're going over to the scene of the accident where John is sitting there in his car. Okay, we're ready for another restart. They had put some sticky stuff in the corners to help the cars get more traction at Lee Speedway because the asphalt surface is about 28 years old and it's kind of worn out. Unfortunately, they put it down just a few hours before the race and it hadn't cured and didn't work quite as well as they thought it would, but hopefully it'll work better this week. You know, the owner, Red McDonald, is trying to do whatever he can to help the racers. We appreciate that. Okay, they're under green now. The top 7 or 8 cars there are pretty much the same speed. It's kind of difficult to pass. But you'll see the wing, the struts for the wing go down in the straightaway as the air pushes the wing down. Right there, and it goes back up as you go into the corner. wing pressure. We run about 120 pounds of pressure in the wing. And you can change that depending on how much you want the wing to go up and down. He's right behind Sparky McIver again. At this point, Jake was 3 laps down because he had to come in and make adjustments to the car, so he didn't want to try to fight it out with Sparky and ruin Sparky's day by running into him. So he rode behind Sparky. I remember back in the 80s when ESPN put the in-car camera in, it was a big deal. Now everyone has a GoPro. And you see skiers put them on their helmets as they go blasting down an icy slope. And the quality is really good on these new ones. They have a bigger lens, so it's not so dark. Because this is at night. With the old GoPro we had, you just get a lot of darkness. This is Jim Barker we're passing. He's just starting racing and he's a little slow, but he stays out of everyone's way. And we appreciate him coming to the races every week and joining us. I think at the end of the straightaway right here, they're going over 100 miles an hour. You don't really know. They don't have speedometers. We just go by times, lap times. If you get under 14 seconds a lap, you're doing really good. Get down in the high 13s. Right now they're doing about 14.2. 14.2 seconds. I don't know how these kids do it. I get pretty dizzy doing this. I believe that's the end of it. Yeah, that's it. Well, we watched the show on ESPN2 of New England Dragway Sunday night. Went for 3 hours from 7 to 10. And NHRA had their nationals at New England Dragway. It was a huge deal. John Force raced his daughter, and she beat him in the finals. It was pretty neat to watch that. We're not real big into drag racing, but I was that weekend. And we're proud to have the drag NHRA at New England Dragway. Hopefully we'll get there this year and bring you some of that action. Also in the future, this Saturday, we're supposed to go to Star Speedway. The Big Block Super Modifieds will be there, along with NEMA and NEMA Lights. And we want to show you the Big Block Supers. So hopefully we'll be able to cover them, interview some of them, and show you the racing action of the Big Block Supers. We still want to go to Manchester Motordrome. They're racing on Saturdays. They're racing karts. And I've been in contact with the promoter there. He wants us to come and cover him. So we're going to work that into our schedule this year for sure. I think the second or third episode we covered the promoter, Sean Duhame's garage, and he showed us some of the stuff that he does. We also want to go up to Canaan and cover some of their racing. And, of course, Bear Ridge with a dirt track in Bradford, Vermont, and they've welcomed us to come up there. So there's plenty to cover. And we'll be seeing you we'll be showing you some new racing, different tracks coming up in the future. Stafford, Canaan, Manchester Motordrome, Bear Ridge. There's a lot to show that we haven't covered so far. And let's face it, it's coming up to mid-season already. Seemed like we were freezing every time we went to the track, and now it's 90 degrees. But We'll be freezing again soon. So we'll see you next week, and hopefully we'll have plenty of action for you. Thanks for joining us.